Hello, this is Larry at larryricker.com, and today I'm going to go over how to change oil in a Honda CRV 2003. So some of the, if you like this video, please click the like button below, and if you want to check out some of my apps, I have several apps in the Apple App Store, including Project Organizer, Opportunity Organizer, Job Hunt, and Class Organizer. And just click on the links below to check out those apps. So without further ado, some of the things you're going to need is a dirty shirt or an old shirt that's you're not afraid to get it greasy. You're going to need a tool such as this to take off the oil filter, and you'll need a ratchet to loosen up the bolt on the bottom of the CRV at the oil tank. I'll go show you that when I get out under the car. You need some paper towels, and also you might want to use a ratchet loosener for your filter, also like this. I actually prefer this kind. It's a little tricky to use this one, but it seems to work a little better. You have to sort of put it over the oil filter, and then you kind of push down on it and it gets tight. Actually, you pull it like this and it squeezes the filter as you pull it in this direction, and then as you pull it up, then you take the leverage and you crank it around. So it's going to be lefty-loosey. So if you are on the back of the motor, you'll have to turn it around such as this and slide it over the back, put it over the filter, and then you'll be going clockwise, which is counterclockwise, but everything's opposite, and you just pull it around that way. So you also need some chocks to brace the wheels, especially if you're going to jack up the car. And I'm probably going to, for expedience, not that it's a lot quicker, but it actually works out a lot better, to take off the right front tire, and that way you can go to the oil filter from the side and get to it easily, because it's just right there, as opposed to the other way is to climb over top of the engine, lay on top of the motor, reach over the top as I just described, and then try to pull it around that way. But you'll find yourself reaching through a bunch of pipes and hoses and all kinds of stuff. So I'm going to start the process of draining this engine, and I'll pick that up underneath the car. Some of the other items you're going to need are a pan to collect the oil in, a funnel to pour the oil out of the pan back into the oil can, so you can take them back to AutoZone or your favorite auto parts dealer to dump them out. You'll need these chocks. They go under the behind the front, or behind the rear, and in front of the rear tire, on the same side, the right side of the vehicle, to make sure that the vehicle doesn't move and fall on you. And then under the front of the car, I recommend putting a lift jack like this. You're going to jack up the vehicle using the car jack, but then sliding this under the hook, which is located right underneath the front of the car, up under here. And that hook will support the vehicle, the weight of the vehicle. It's meant for towing it out of when it gets stuck or something. So that's useful. Okay, for actually removing the plug from the bottom of the oil pan, you'll want a 17mm box wrench, which is like this. It's the called a box wrench because it's boxes completely around the nut, or you can use an open-ended wrench if you'd like, or you can use a socket wrench. Also recommend a nice pair of nitrile gloves because you'll get a little oil on yourself, and yeah, that could cause cancer if you're in the state of California, so why take any chances? To remove the plug from the bottom of the engine on the oil pan, it's at the lowest point of the bottom of the motor. It's right here. It's on the back side, and normally when you tighten things, you want to go righty-tighty, and then to loosen it, you would go lefty-loosey. But because it's on the opposite side, you're going to go righty, opposite would be left to loosen. So everything's backwards from this angle. So you just turn left or clockwise to loosen. If you're actually facing the bottom of the motor, it would be counterclockwise or anti-clockwise, as some say on the internet. So just turn this. You want to catch the nut if you can. If you don't catch it, then you're going to have to fish it out, and you'll need one additional tool, which would be a magnetic, just a magnet to go into the oil and pull out your nut, your plug nut. So I'm going to see if I'm going to be successful in hanging on to this. It's loose, and I'm laying on a cloth, and you just want to kind of catch it and drop it. And even if you are wearing gloves, you're going to get oil all over them anyway here, so I think I'm going to go wash my hands while this drains out. Okay, now that the oil has drained mostly out, there's just a thin stream of oil coming out of the bottom of the engine, and I did manage to clean my hands, and I'm ready to stick the plug back in the bottom. So the procedure for that would be grab a shop towel, wipe it off, try not to make a mess, and clean that up nice, and then just reach around, and now we're going to do, hopefully not drop it in the oil, and inspect the crush washer on the nut itself. See that it looks okay. You should replace the crush washer. Don't usually do that, but forgot to go pick one up. But you would, at this point, replace the crush washer, and then just reach around here. And now it's going to be opposite again, so it would be righty-tighty. But now, because everything's opposite, you're going to turn it in the opposite direction, which is left, to tighten it. You kind of finger tighten that until the oil stops dripping out. And then you'll push the oil back here towards the back of the vehicle where you're going to replace the oil filter. And the oil will fall out when you replace the oil filter. And then you continue to go, well, it's righty-tighty, but it's lefty. You go actually left because everything is opposite from the back side. You just want that tight enough so it's not dripping, but you don't want to strip anything, because stripping will require you to retap the oil pan, put in a new bolt. It's a specialized bolt. You don't want to deal with that. And kind of wipe it up and clean up the bottom. And then we're ready to go deal with the oil filter. Okay, for the next step, I'm going to need an oil filter, obviously, and I'm using a SDP oil filter that matches this vehicle. And you'll need 5 quarts of motor oil to refill the oil after we do the filter. You got to do the filter first, and then you replace the oil. And if you have this done professionally, it seems to me like 1 out of every 10 times they forget to put the oil back in. So that's why I like to do it myself, just to make sure my vehicle is going to work after they get done. So first I'm going to try going over the top and reach around the back and try to take the filter out. And I position the catch pan underneath where the oil filter is on the back of the motor. Now it's back here on the back left side. So what I'll do is grab my wrench and start trying to get that loose. Okay, so the first method I'm going to try is to reach over the back of the motor. This usually doesn't work for me. And then I end up jacking up the car, taking the right front tire off and going in that way, which I'll probably end up doing, but hey, if I can get this oil filter off without doing that, it's easier. So everything's opposite here because the filter's on the back of the motor, down behind here, all the way down at the bottom. So normally you would go lefty-loosey to loosen something, but that would be if you were standing this way and facing it. But we're not facing that way. We're facing forward, so it's actually righty-tighty to loosen it. A little confusing, but everything's opposite because the perspective and the position where you're at. So I'm going to climb up here on top of the motor and then reach down. And I took my watch and tight in here to get in and just kind of reach down in here and feel your way around. You're feeling for something round, which is your oil filter. You can't really see exactly from here what you're doing, which makes it extra difficult. And I might just reposition my lights. You can see if I loosened it by reaching down and twisting it with my hand, and I didn't successfully loosen it. Not really getting the leverage I need. So I'm not going to waste too much more time with that. I'm going to go around to the bottom and try this the other way. I always try at first to go over the top of the motor, but it's never worked for me yet, so I don't waste too much time with that. Now what I need to do is grab these chucks, and I go around to the back tire, and I'm going to fit one of the chucks behind the tire. Then I'll grab my other chuck, and I position that in front of the tire. That keeps the vehicle from sliding back and forth. Now I'm going to go get the jack up this tire, and I'll slide this jack under that front support, which holds the vehicle to be towed, and then I'll resume the video. Whenever you're lifting or jacking up a vehicle, you want to find the lift point, which is right behind the front tire, and it's this strong support area right here. You want to put your jack under that and jack the car up there. When you're taking your tire off, it's good to go every other bolt and try to pull on them to loosen them. That one's obviously loose, but if you get one that's tight, which they all should be tight, it helps if you have a copper or a pipe of some type to stick over the end of your wrench and then pull up on it, and that'll give you some leverage. It'll make it really easy to pull those bolts. You don't have to keep lugging at them and possibly strip them or damage them. A little bit of extra leverage goes a long way to make it. Just use your physics to help you out and make it easy for yourself. Then after you've loosened them, then you can just use the wrench, because it'll be easy to turn those bolts off. And when you tighten them, just go every 2 bolts around, and then if you do that pattern, skipping 1 bolt as you go around in circle, you'll hit every bolt on your second pass. As I mentioned earlier, before I go crawling under a car, I want to make sure it's supported in at least 2 places. So I just slide this up under this tow hook here, and then make sure it's up as high as it goes. That just gives me extra insurance that this vehicle is not going to fall on me. Okay, now I've got that tire out of the way, so I'm going to get my gloves on here. I'm going to take my loosener here, and the filter's right up here on top of this. I don't know, it's a UV joint, or it's some kind of drive shaft for the front tires. I'm going to reach this tool up in here from this angle and try to get it up and get it around this oil filter. There's a lot more room to work here now, and then I can just kind of pinch it down and pull up on it, and Again, I'm going lefty-loosey now because now I'm behind the vehicle and I can get a little more leverage here. You can also see my oil pan from this vantage point underneath the wheel well, and I can see that it's in the correct position to catch any oil that falls out when I take off this oil filter. And I can just work it here. I got lots of space underneath with the tire out of the way. And I just keep cranking on it. Again, left turning counterclockwise. Some people like to call it anti-clockwise. I don't know if that's the European pronunciation or what, but just turn it counterclockwise until it becomes loose, and then we'll take that off. I'm sure it's loose by now, so I can reach up with my hand and just turn it the final few turns to get it completely off. And it's going to start dripping oil here at any moment, and you'll see that coming down and then going into the oil pan. Again, you want to have nitrile gloves or latex if you're old school. I prefer the nitrile gloves. And then if you just tilt it back a little bit like this, you'll catch some of the oil so it won't leak out, and you could set it down on your pan that you have below the vehicle. You take your nice, fresh, clean, new oil filter out of the container and make sure it matches up. S6607. That doesn't match at all. Anyhow, well, it's the right size. It's just a different brand, I guess. Same color. And then we're gonna go righty-tighty and just screw this back on. Lost my place here. Gonna find that and then screw this on. Oh, there it is. Okay. Can't really see where it is, so you gotta kind of feel it. You want to make sure you get your threads on straight. Just turn it real easy. If it's not turning on easily, then you're cross-threading, and you never want to cross-thread anything when you're working on a vehicle or any other application. And then just tighten it until you can just barely turn it with your bare hands. And then you can take out your little trusty tool, and it was lefty-loosey, so now it's going to be righty-tighty. So you would just turn it over and wrap it around and just turn it in the opposite direction this time. Push down on it until it's tight, and then just push it with a little bit of leverage with this tool. You don't want to make it so tight you can't get it back off. Like I couldn't reach over the motor and get it off because I obviously made it too tight. But you don't want it leaking. And now if you just dump the oil in the top of the motor, you're pretty much done with an oil change. So you can do this at home. If you like this video, again, click on the like button below and check out my apps. There'll be links down in the comment section. Well, that was a little presumptuous of me to know that you'd know how to add oil to your vehicle. So let me just be thorough and show you how to take care of everything here. So you want to open up this filler cap on the top of your 2.4 liter DOHC, and then you take off your cap from your oil can. You want to save that because you're going to refill this with the oil from the oil pan. Then you want to pop this seal here. Again, you're going to have your nitrile gloves on so you don't get any oil on your fingers. Now, the way to pour an oil can so it doesn't make a big, huge mess is actually turn it so that the oil is, the spigot, the pour hole, is at the top here. And then you want to kind of tilt it over this way. That way, it's coming out from the top. Air can get in while the oil is coming out. And then you want to position that over the hole. Just be careful that you pour it all in the hole. Now you're going to probably put in about 4 liters of oil, or 4 quarts of oil. And then after you're done with your 4 quarts, you might check the oil. Run the engine a little bit, see if your level is about in the midpoint of where it's supposed to be. And now I'm getting sloppy because I'm going to try to talk and do something at the same time. But just keep pouring it in the hole. Get in about 4 quarts, and then check their levels. Run the engine, and then if you need to add more to get it up near the high level of the on the dipstick, you can always add the last quart. Again, if you do this carefully and you hold the oil container like this while you're pouring it in, it won't be going bloop, 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 bloop while it's coming out, in which case it'll be flying all over the place and making a big, huge mess. So you want to pour your oil like this. I still made a little mess. That's just because I'm doing a video, right? That's why we get these little shop towels from AutoZone when we do our oil changes. Comes with a kit so you can clean up the messes when you get done. But this isn't the worst part. The next part's the most hazardous, where you gotta dump the used oil back into the container. So check your oil, you pull out your dipstick. See how much oil you got on your dipstick. Drop it back in there, make sure it's seated. Pull it back out, take a look. Yeah, it's pretty much up to the high mark right there. Of course, when you run the motor, it's going to start circulating the oil. It's going to fill up that oil filter, which might take a little bit more oil. And because I need this oil container to dump out the oil, I'm probably going to dump in the rest of the oil. Now then I'll show you the next step of getting the oil back in the container to send down to AutoZone to pour back in the recycle bin. Now for the most nerve-wracking part of this video, what you want to try to do is pull out your oil pan very carefully from underneath the bottom of the car. Then you're going to walk it over to your 5-quart oil container that you got from AutoZone. And then very carefully tilt it forward and dump it into the funnel, trying not to drip and make a big huge mess. And then carefully dump it back into the oil container at a speed where it can go down into the container without overflowing the funnel. Very nerve-wracking and awesome. Often results in making a big huge mess. Let's see if I can do this correctly on film, which I seriously doubt because I can never do it when I'm not filming. Okay, let's see how messy we got. Let's see. Oh, actually that's not too bad. Kind of worked out. Okay, so then you'll take some of your shop cloths and you want to wipe out your oil pan. Get that all clean. Now, oily rags. I learned this when I was in 4-H class back in Sussex County. Actually, it was 4-H camp. They showed a demonstration with oily rags. That if you have oily rags in a room, and there's also an open flame in the same room, that the fumes from the oily rags will travel over to flame and then the oily rags will burst into flames, and then, you know, any structure it's in is going to burn to the ground. So you don't want to leave these oily rags sitting inside your house. So recommend disposing of them and get them outside the house. Don't leave them in your garage until it's garbage day. Definitely put them in a bag or something and move it away from your home structure and away from any flames or open ignition systems, or flames or sparks or anything. But definitely a hazardous type of thing. Okay, well, just a couple other things. I think if any Americans are watching this, I probably need to mention that you need to put your tire back on for safety reasons. And exposure to oil probably causes cancer even if you don't live in the state of California. And the oil could be hot when you pour it out of the vehicle, particularly if you just ran the vehicle. The engine parts could also be hot, so you could burn yourself doing this. So it's a good idea to let the engine cool off before you attempt to do an oil change. And you could remove the jack from the front of the vehicle before you lower it. Otherwise, you're going to have to jack it back up. And when you're tightening up your lug nuts, you turn them to the right, righty-tighty. And you should secure them alternating every other bolt in a circular pattern, either clockwise or counterclockwise, going around until you've gone around twice and all of your lug nuts are secured. You can tighten them up slowly by hand. Make sure you don't cross-thread them. I hate cross-threaded nuts, particularly when tire installers cross-thread your nuts and your lug nuts and drive them onto your vehicle and sort of weld them onto the lug nuts, and then when you go to remove them, it tears the lug nut in half and requires you to take your hub out of your vehicle and pull the pin out and replace the pin, which could take you, well, it takes a slow person like me 4 hours to do. You might be able to do it in 3.5 hours, but it's not a good time. So just make sure you don't cross thread your lug nuts. Put them on the lug pins by hand, screw them on slowly and carefully, and then you can, if you have an air gun, use an air gun. I mean, seriously, how many turns does it need of a lug wrench to put on a lug nut? Do you need to use an air wrench? Does it save you that much time? Maybe. But you just sat here and watched me do it, so it didn't take that long. And then I like to use my extended rod or pipe on my lug nut to kind of torque them down a little bit, and I just kind of give them a quarter, maybe a third of a turn, and then I go around, skip one, go to the next lug nut, give it maybe a third of a turn, and then skip a lug nut, and then go to the next one, give it another third of a turn. This should keep your tires from falling off as you're going down the highway, which is never a good thing. And then you just want to make sure that you lower your jack carefully and then pull out your chocks before you move the vehicle. And then you pretty much, I think you got everything. If you liked the video, click on like below. Just two other things I forgot to mention earlier in the video. I realized as I was packing up my tools and putting them away, make sure you always wear protective eyewear. And I probably wasn't wearing them during most of the video because I broke my glasses earlier today. And then also always recycle your oil. Don't dump it on the ground. Don't throw it in the garbage. Take it to the place where you bought it. And in the state of Pennsylvania, they're required to recycle it. Also in Arizona, and I believe New Jersey, and probably every other state. And if that's not the law in every state, it should be the law in every state. Thank you for watching.